So yeah. So anyway, my name is Gina Mendello, in case you don't know. Just a little bit about myself. I know a lot of people in the room. A lot of you don't know me, but I've been coming to this conference for about 19 years now, I think. Yeah, you know. As most of you know, I managed Tommy for 14 years. So, which is, 100 years in manager years, so it's a pretty long time. But how all that started was actually a kind of an interesting story. I have a degree in film and television from New York University, which is a great school. And I was working in LA in film and television, and it was really fun, and I loved it. But Hollywood was kind of I didn't want to do that kind of film. And so I really loved Australian films, and I met an Australian director who said, if you ever want to come and hang out in Australia, you can stay with my son and I, and stay as long as you want. And I went, okay. And just around that time, the company I was working for went broke, so everybody lost their jobs. And I was like, open space. I said, what am I going to do now? I said, I can go to Australia. And I got really lucky, got right in there. I got a migration visa right away, and worked on a feature film there, and called Garbo, which was not about Greta Garbo, it was actually about garbage men. If you know about Australians, they call it like, physio, Garbo, gyno, so Garbo. And but the way things work in Australia in the film industry back then is if there was no film, there was no job. So when the film was over, there was no job. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I looked around for film jobs, and there weren't many going on. And so I just looked in the paper, and there was a job at Sony Music in the marketing department for international artist marketing. And because I'd worked at Paramount Studios for 3 years, there was a thing in there that says, must have experience with international celebrities. And I did. I worked on Rain Man and all these movies, so I had experience with celebrities. I got the job, and it was fantastic, and I found that I love music marketing. It has a way shorter attention span than film, and I love music, always have. Started out playing the guitar and the oboe and the saxophone in school, and loved it. So I went to work at Sony, and they said to me, you have to go and see all the acts on the label. That's one of the requirements of the job. I said, okay. So they said, go see Tommy Emmanuel. He's playing at the Seymour Center, and it's going to be a big show, full band and everything. Had I ever heard of Tommy? No, never heard of him. And so we all went to the show, and I sat there and saw, well, put it this way, after the show I kind of couldn't get up. I was in my seat, and I said, I've just never seen anything like that in my entire life. That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I was so moved. And so we all, went to the cast party record company thing afterward, and I met Tommy, and we just kind of shook hands. We kind of looked at each other for a second like, you look familiar, But after that, when he came into the Sony, he would always come and visit, because I was the country music manager. He liked country music, so he said, well, I come by your office because I always like the music coming out of there. So we became friends, and we talked all the time whenever he'd come in the office. And then we did a showcase in Nashville with some Australian artists on 2 different labels. 3 artists, Gina Jeffries, Lee Kernaghan, and Mark O'Shea, who you may not know, but they know them all in Australia for sure. And then we had Troy Casadele, and a young guy named Peter Catlin, who never did end up becoming a singer, and Tommy, who was working with Chet at the time, and happened to be in town, coincidentally. So he came and did this showcase at the Ace of Clubs down on Broadway, and the guys from Sony came, Sony Nashville, and they, of course, were suitably overwhelmed, and they were the ones who said to Chet, why don't you guys do an album together, that would be good, and that's how the day Fingerpickers Took Over the World got kind of started. Interesting thing though, in Australia you would think that would have been a huge hit, only there was a problem. He had just done he was, back in Australia he was known for smooth jazz, back when that was a thing. That kind of groovy, jazzy kind of stuff. And if you've ever heard any of his electric stuff, that's what it was like, right? So he just released an album, Can't Get Enough, that was all of that. And Sony Australia had sunk a lot of money in that and was marketing it. And so when the album with Chet came out, they went, shh, don't tell anybody. It's like, but wait a minute, it's Chet Atkins. It's like, yeah, nobody knows him here. We need to sell this. And so Sony Australia made the incredible mistake of not doing anything with it, but I did. So I was talking about it to everybody who knew country, and they loved it. So the album came out, as you know, Dave Fingerpickers took over the world, and they had it set up. Tommy and Chet were going to be on, David Letterman and Jay Leno and all the talk shows, all of them. And then Chet got sick, and it didn't happen. And so the publicity for the album didn't happen in America either. However, it was nominated for a Grammy, which is fantastic. Of course, Doc Watson won that year, and the other year Tommy was nominated for a Grammy. So when Doc Watson's nominated, what are you going to do, right? So, but from there, I moved back to the United States after Sony did their contraction thing, which record companies do, and Tommy moved to England after, he just wanted to start touring more in the world, and it's far easier to do it from Europe than England, and his wife was Danish, and they could get in, and all that worked out. So we kind of lost touch. And one day I went to a retreat down in Monteagle, Tennessee, and I met somebody I'd never met before, and we were talking about what we did. And I said, well, I worked in Australia in the music business, and she said, oh, there's this Australian guitarist down in Chattanooga tonight. What was his name? Tony or Tommy or something. I said, Tommy Emmanuel. She goes, yeah, that's him. He's playing in Chattanooga. I said, where? And she gave me the name of the venue, and I called the venue, and I left a message, and Tommy called me the next day. He's like, where are you? I said, I'm in Nashville. Where are you? He goes, I'm living in England, but I'm coming here all the time working with Chet. He said, let's have dinner. So we did. And the next time he came, and it was a kind, in looking back at it, it was a kind of a funny conversation, because he said quite humbly, as he does, gosh, I think I could probably do okay here if I just had some help. And I said, yeah? He goes, well, there wouldn't be much in it at first. I said, look, you don't have to tell me how valuable you might be in any market. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know. And at the time I had a job at a record company, and they, once again, as record companies do, they started outsourcing everything. So I called him up and I said, hey, Tom, I'm available. Do you want to do some work together? And he's like, okay, let's do it, And we made a deal, which I am going to tell you now is something you guys should think about for anybody who wants to help you. He said, look, I know there's not much in it in terms of percentage, but I can pay you like a salary. And I said, fine, whatever, great. And that's all I did, and the minute I sat down at the desk to do that, the phone started to ring. And people were saying, so you're getting Tommy booked? I said, yeah, okay, I want to book him, and there it went. But here it is. Now, there's enough people for me to tell you now what I want to tell you about, why I'm talking about this. How did it spread throughout America? It spread throughout America by being at this conference. Okay, this is where it started. And it started because there are people here from all over the world. All over the world. You've met the Japanese guys and the Italian guys and the German people, the girl and guy, and all over the world. And they're here experiencing Tommy. There are also people here from all over the country, all over, all corners of it. And they are seeing Tommy. And every one of those people would come to me afterward and say, I want Tommy to come to my town. I'll help put on a show. I know a guy who has a venue or a coffee shop. I can have people in my house, whatever it is. And we had champions all over the country that came from this conference. We had Bill Monk from Birmingham. Bill Monk's not here now, but he was here. He brought us to Birmingham. Lynn Clapp and Will Holman brought us to Knoxville. And Lynn used to run the sound here, Broadway Sound. Broadway Sound had a great room, had guitar players. So Knoxville was the very first market, because there were tons of people there who came and kept coming, and it grew bigger and bigger and bigger. We had a guy named Sid Smoot in Texas. Jack and Elaine brought us up to Boston. I mean, everybody just said, hey, we can have a little something. And we, when we went, we had a place to stay. We had a person in the market who ended up working as our street team to invite people because we didn't know anybody. We didn't know anybody in Boston. So, and so everywhere we went, we had a champion. Stephen Bennett got us into the Virginia area in a huge way. He took us on all his shows, and he had a big audience in that area. And one of the things he did for us is that he got the Walnut Valley Festival in Winfield, Kansas. He told them, look, you got to have this guy on. They said, we've never heard of him. They said, fine, just have him on a stage, a small stage, once, whatever. And the Walnut Valley Festival is a huge bluegrass festival in Winfield, Kansas. It happens every September. It's been happening for 30 years. Nickel Creek got started there. A lot of different bluegrass bands. They call it a bluegrass festival, but it's kind of everything. So Stephen got us, because he's been playing there for years, he got us on the bill, and it was kind of like the Pied Piper. It's kind of interesting to tell you the story, because he played at a small stage and nobody knew who he was. But you could hear all the music at Winfield, right, Jacob? You could hear everyone playing. So he starts to play, and Tommy plays it a little louder than most people, so he, cranked it up. And you could see people walking by going, what is that? Where's that coming from? It's over there. Let's go over there. And crowds just kept coming. It was just amazing. It was like people just kept coming from everywhere. And by the time he finished the set, there were like hundreds of people watching him. And then word got, did you hear that about that guy? Oh my God. Next set he did in the small stage, all those people told a whole bunch of other people, and there were even more hundreds. And by the time he played on the main stage, it was packed with 13,000 people. I mean, it was incredible. And I sold 1,300 CDs in 4 days. And I ran out. I could have sold more. But at that festival, I got Rhonda Smith from Oklahoma City, people from Colorado, people from Wichita, all said, we want to book you, you should come to our town, and that started that whole area. Rhonda Smith is a great story. She's from Oklahoma City, and she was so blown away that she said, I'm going to find a venue, and I'm going to get you in, and I'm going to invite everybody. And she literally brought flyers into nightclubs and concerts and gave them to every single person and said, you've got to come to this. Talk about promotion. If you want to know what it takes to get somebody to a gig, if you come up to somebody and say, you must come to this. It's not like putting a post on Facebook, hey, y'all come. No, this is like, she was so passionate. And those champions, normal people, they weren't music promoters. They were just people who love music. But they were so passionate and excited that they told their friends who told their friends. And yeah, the first time in any market, maybe there was 50 people, But I tell you what, the second time there was 150 people. And then there were 300 people. And it just went on like that. But without the champions, we wouldn't have been able to do it. And they're all here. A lot of them are still here. Patty's here from Philly. Patty brought us into Philly and Long Beach Island. We ended up doing 4 shows on Long Beach Island. That's another good story. Stephen Bennett introduced us to the Long Beach Island crew. And the first show Tommy was supposed to have there was in February in the East Coast. Not a good idea, especially when there's a blizzard warning. And Patty had gotten her house set up for us, and there was lots of food, but there's an intercoastal waterway going over to Long Beach Island. And so we were at Nashville flying to Philly, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we're shutting down all the airports, but we're like, no, we have to get to the gig. So I said, well, what's the next flight going anywhere? And they said, well, there's a flight going to Allentown, Pennsylvania. So maybe we could drive from there or something. Well, we got to Allentown, and they're like, no, nothing's going anywhere. And so we were stuck in the Sheraton in Allentown, Pennsylvania for 4 days, snowed in. In the meantime, on Long Beach Island, they were all there and couldn't get out. So,
And we had a ball with Stephen Bennett.
yeah, they had a jam. They were snowed in on an island. That's why not?
It was great.
But we made that we made the most of being stranded at Allentown because there was like a nightclub in there, and Tommy jacked into the sound system, and everybody was really bored. They couldn't get out of the hotel, so he did a concert in the bar at the Allentown, Allentown Sheraton, and we had a great time. He played Beatles tunes to little kids. They were dancing. It was awesome. So then we made fun wherever we went. So. This is going back to what I'm saying originally. All of the beginnings of your career can be right here in this room or outside there. Find your champions. You guys can network with each other. Like, hey, if you come to my town to do a show, I'll promote you here. If I can come to your town and do a show, and you can promote me there, how about that? You can just make a list of you could route a whole tour of people, and then you host them. And there's a guy here named, who knows Dick Ward? Dick Ward is the Guitar League, right? And Dick Ward was telling me how Guitar League is now spreading all over the country. They're starting Guitar League chapters. And I said, that's a great idea, man. That's an awesome idea, because the more Guitar League chapters there are, the more you can make that a performance, like a performance club, so that you can have members who like fingerstyle guitar, or guitar music, and they join, and when someone comes into town, there's an audience. There's a couple of fingerstyle guitar associations that are very successful. Michigan Fingerstyle Guitar Association is fantastic. They've got 2 venues that they use up there in Michigan, and Joe Stavali's the guy up there, and they have everybody come, and they get really good crowds now because they've established that they're the people who have fingerstyle guitar, and so everyone knows where to go. And so it's really wonderful to see that happening. Well, if there were a guitar league everywhere, and all of y'all could join it, then you could create a whole circuit, like a touring circuit, but we need champions. You can't do it without the champions, because let me tell you what it's like in the rest of the music business. Okay, what do you think is the most important question a booking person of a venue has when you write to them? What's the most important question?
How many people can you bring?
How many people can you bring? It's not how good you are, by the way. It's just not. It's not how good you are. How many people can you bring? Do you have any fans in the market? Now, if you've never been there, then your answer is going to be a big, no, never been there, sorry. But if you were to say, well, I've done about 3 house concerts, and I've gotten everyone's name, and there were about 30 people at each concert, and then I'm in the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society, and there's a bunch of members in your market, and I can invite them, and they already said they were going to help me promote, so I've got like a street team, and they're going to bring my stuff to radio stations. One of my friends there says he knows a guy at the radio station. Maybe I get some airplay. You lead with that in your pitch, and they'll go, oh, okay. You'll get a crowd, right? And that's what you have to lead with. It doesn't matter to them if you say, hey, I'm really good. Really, I am. My mother thinks so. I played in high school and I was awesome, and yeah. Another thing that would help is like, well, I've got 600,000 views on YouTube. I've got 10,000 fans on Facebook. I've got 14,000 fans on Instagram. That is now a thing. It's a huge thing for bookers. Huge thing. I talked to a guy who promotes a festival, and I said, well, how do you decide like who you book and how much you pay them? He goes, well, if they have more than 100,000 fans on Facebook, I'll pay them $5,000. And that was his answer. That's what it is. So, the rest of the world outside of, the real music business has a whole other criterion. And it's how many people can you get into the room? And if you address that question first up, but then that leads you to have to start working on that. Like, you got to work on fans, getting fans. And this is why I'm telling you this. You need to be able to say that you have fans, and that those fans will come to hear you play. And the more and the better you work on that. That's how we were able to get all over the country. My goodness, not only did we have the fans, We had fans that would invite other people. There's a woman in Virginia who prided herself on saying, I'm bringing 20 people to the next show. 20 people, you know? And we're like, really? He goes, yeah, last time I brought 10, but this time I'm bringing 20. And she like bragged about it. She was so proud. And she would come in, she goes, yeah, we're all going to dinner first, and you know, we're coming to make a night of it. 20 people. We should have made a deal to give anybody who brings like over 20 a free ticket. I mean, we never did, but that's the kind of the enthusiasm that we got. Well, imagine you having a friend in the marketplace who you've met at Cass, who loves your music, who says, wait, you come to Kentucky, you come to, is Eddie here? Eddie Mattingly. There's a guy named Eddie Mattingly. He was our champion in Kentucky. And, you know, he once again started us there as well. Is that Eddie? No, that's not Eddie. And you tell, you know, you have one of these people invite you to your town, and then they go out and tell everyone they know, you know, you'll have a crowd. And what they're saying basically, because you're not being seen on the radio, you're not being heard on the radio, you're not being seen on television. What they're taking is their friend's word when their friend says, trust me, you got to come and see this. It's really amazing. You're going to love this. That's the best endorsement ever. But if that champion is doing that to 20, 30 people, or like Rhonda did, going into clubs and going, hi, I'm doing a show, I want you to come, here's a flyer, I'll give you a discount if you mention the flyer, whatever. That brings people to a show, right? So from here, everything grew. It was like a snowball effect. It really was. Now, the interesting thing is in the rest of the world, we had the same thing happen. We've had the Japanese friends here and the Korean friends, and there's the Neighbor Fingerstyle. You know the Neighbor Fingerstyle guitar group? Like 4,000 fingerstyle guitarists in Korea. You know, we were able to get booked in a place where they don't even speak English, and Tommy doesn't speak their language, and we were able to get booked in those places and have really good crowds. Once again, how would you play in a place where nobody can even understand you? Because those people think you're great, and they invite you to come and play in their country. And they take such good care of you in the rest of the world. They really do. They come stay at our house, come eat, let me take you shopping and, you know, sightseeing and everything, you know. Then when you get to a certain point, the promoters of that style of music get really interested. And there's usually in every country or region, there's a guy who does guitar concerts. In China and Asia, there's a guy named Cha Wei. Cha Wei has done everybody, including Tommy. He did a all-girl fingerstyle guitar tour, which had Christy Lene, who I work with, and a Korean guitarist and a Japanese guitarist, all fingerstyle. It was really amazing. Took them all over, Hanoi, Kuala Lumpur, everywhere. But he does Andy McKee. He does the local fingerstyle stars like Kotaro Ushio, and there's tons of them. And so, you know, once you get the attention of that guy, then you get the bigger concerts in China. And we only had like 300 people. I remember when we played in Shanghai, and you know, as big as Shanghai is, you'd think there would have been more, but he's like, no, don't worry. It was just a bad night. We'll have more next time. And there was. We had 1,200 people in Beijing, and he'd never been there before. It's all a promotion.